It's match week 2 in the UEFA Champions League, and our Goal.com experts Carlo Garganesi, James Goldman and Peter Staunton cast their expert eyes on the leading contenders for the trophy.
I think Chelsea are the only Premier League team who can realistically challenge for the Champions League this season. Although that they're stronger this season, they brought in Eden Hazard, they brought in Oscar, their squad is stronger than it was last season. They still have weaknesses. I think the defence, the centre-backs are still slow in midfield. I'm not sure if Frank Lampard and John Obi Mikel, as we saw in the Juventus game, are strong enough to take them all the way. But you can never write off Chelsea. They've got such great mental strength that they make up for their individual weaknesses. So you just cannot write off Chelsea.
I think you're right to say they're possibly better equipped to win the Champions League this season than they were last season, but the upheaval in terms of their squad, I think, is going to affect their chances massively. They're trying to learn a new style of playing, and I think if a challenge is going to come from the Premier League, it'll probably, in all likelihood, come from the champions Manchester City. They've got a very settled style of play, very similar team from last season, and assuming they've learnt the lessons from their exit last season, I think they will go on, even though they've landed themselves a pretty tough draw and didn't get off to a particularly positive start against Real Madrid.
Yeah, well, what we saw on the opening match day was a continuation of what happened to City in Europe last season. They find themselves in decent positions in matches, can't close them out, and where other teams might escape with a draw, they're actually getting beaten again. And I think there's far too many limitations, certainly from a managerial point of view, on Mancini in Europe. He had the strongest and richest squad in Italy for nigh on 5 years and couldn't take Inter past the quarter-finals. And his style of management and his tactics, I think they fall short in Europe. And you could see that against Real Madrid. Throwing two debutants in the Bernabeu is always going to be a risk. And I think until he figures out how to win matches in the Champions League, I think that his players are always going to be held back by him, despite their own pedigree.
Well, Manchester United, I mean, for years now, at least 2-3 years, they've had the same problem. They lack quality in the centre of midfield. And Alex Ferguson, again this summer, chose not to address that problem. He went and spent 30-odd million on Robin Van Persie, and Van Persie will be a great striker. He'll probably score around 30 goals this season if he stays fit. But the problem that they have is in midfield, and I think whenever Manchester United play against a team who have a strong midfield, they get dominated. And we saw it at the weekend against Tottenham in the first half. Moussa Dembele, he ran the show in the first half. United rallied in the second period, but I just think that if Manchester United, they'll be fine in the group, they'll get out of their group comfortably, but in the knockouts, as soon as they meet a top team, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus have all got outstanding midfields. I just cannot see them winning any of those games.
Arsenal have been really unlucky in their Champions League knockout draws in the last few years. It was only Barcelona that put them out twice, and admittedly they had a terrible night against Milan in the San Siro last season, and that ended up costing them, but they were far and away the better team in the second leg. And had they not come up against Barcelona, then I think they could have gone possibly all the way, certainly all the way to the final.
So for me, yeah, Barcelona are justified favourites. There was a lot of debate over the summer as to whether Tito Vilanova could take over from Pep Guardiola and whether it would be a seamless transition. And for me, although there are slight flaws in their style of play and there's question marks over their defence, they've won 6 out of 6. They came from 2 goals down to beat Spartak Moscow on match day 1. Again, 2 goals behind against Sevilla at the week. It seems whatever position they're in, they're capable of finding an answer. And almost the most encouraging thing out of Saturday's performance against Sevilla was the fact that Messi didn't score. It's an accusation that's thrown at them time and time again. If he doesn't score, who is going to step up to the plate for them? Well, Cesc Fabregas answered that at the weekend. David Villa off the bench, it's great to see him back in action. And he's another incredible option that they've got at their disposal. I see certain weaknesses in their setup, but they're not insurmountable flaws in their system.
I think there's question marks. I think Carlos Puyol is always injured now. Piqué seems to spend most of his time with Shakira, and the backups that are coming in, Song, everybody knows. I think he's possibly the most overrated player in the world. I think Real Madrid are the favourites for me, ahead of Barcelona. I think they've got their number. They may be 8 points behind already. I know the Clasico's coming up this weekend, which may tell us more. So I think that Villanova has a lot of questions to answer.
And you mentioned Real Madrid. For me, I think that their start to the season has been so poor that I don't expect them to catch Barcelona on the domestic front, which does mean that Jose Mourinho perhaps might turn his attention wholeheartedly to the Champions League. They had a fantastic win on the opening day against Manchester City. I mean, City will give everybody in that group trouble, I expect. But to recover and to win like that in injury time really shows the intensity that he's brought back to that team, because they had such a poor start to the season. But he did say that he found his team again, or his team had been rediscovered after that game. And from there, I expect them to kick on. Ronaldo in great form again, hat-trick at the weekend. Yeah. For me, he's the best player in the world. And with him in the side, I think they can beat anybody. And certainly I think they'll have too much this week for Ajax.
It's worrying times for Milan, there's no doubt about it. I think even the most tunnel vision of Milan fans will agree that this is a really, really poor Milan team. For me, it's undoubtedly the worst Milan team since Silvio Berlusconi bought the club in 1986. It's over 25 years. They've lost their two best players, Ibrahimovic and Thiago Silva. There's weaknesses in every single department. The defence is shocking. The midfield is solid but lacks creativity, and the attack has good players but not great players. They've made a shocking start to the Serie A season. They're already 9 points off the pace behind the leaders, Napoli and Juventus. So, you know, I think the best, like I said, the best they can hope for is just to get out of that group.
You know, you mentioned Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Thiago Silva. They seem to be going from strength to strength, should I say, for Paris Saint-Germain. They've really started to hit form domestically, Paris Saint-Germain, after 3 consecutive draws at the start of the season. And they really did open up on the opening match day as well, and they were very comprehensive winners in that game. And also at the weekend, victorious again. And I think they could be a real, I wouldn't even say a dark horse, because having spent that much money and having Carlo Ancelotti in charge, you couldn't possibly call this team a dark horse. But I think Paris Saint-Germain could be among the favourites for the trophy this year. The challenge from the Bundesliga is going to come from Bayern Munich. They've been absolutely unstoppable on the domestic front so far this season. None of the defensive frailties that beset them during the last campaign have been apparent so far. They've only conceded 2 goals. I think they look really, really strong at the moment. Toni Kroos has been in fantastic form. Mario Mandzukic has been in great form. And I do think that they can count themselves among the favourites again this year.
It'll be interesting to see how Juventus do this season. They haven't been in the Champions League for a couple of years. Had a great first match day against Chelsea. They're on a 45-game unbeaten run in Italy. Say what you want about Serie A, but if you're on a 45-game unbeaten run, you have to be quite a special team. And the Chelsea game proved that they have the ability to translate that domestic dominance to the European stage. I think they have to be regarded as a contender. Their midfield is second only to Barcelona, their centre midfield I should say. Pirlo, Marchisio and Vidal, who for me, Vidal will be the standout emerging star of this year's Champions League. I don't think they'll win it. I think they'll get to the semi-final stage is a good possibility for them. They lack a top-class striker, and they're a little bit weak in the centre of defence.
I absolutely fell in love with their midfield on match day 1 against Chelsea. I thought the 4 of them were absolutely fantastic. The way they interchanged, the way they covered for each other, the way they passed Chelsea off the pitch, largely in the second half. But for me, lack of a renowned striker is what is going to be their undoing in this competition. I think Vucinic is a decent player. He's got decent touch, but he's never been prolific. And the same with Quagliarella as well, who came on, scored the equalising goal. But long term, he's not the answer for a side that's looking to win the Champions League.